I guess it comes down to a simple choice, really. Get busy living, or get busy dying.
The Shawshank Redemption is the movie I have rewatched the most. I have returned to it at different stages of my life. I once heard a saying, practical manuals give you knowledge, but great literature changes your life. To me, The Shawshank Redemption is that kind of work. Andy Dufresne, a respectable banker, is wrongfully convicted of murdering his wife and her lover, and sentenced to life imprisonment. For most people, being put in that situation means one thing: your life is over, and you will rot in prison forever. And in reality, most inmates in Shawshank had already resigned themselves to that exact fate, just numbly decaying day by day. Yet, driven by radical agency, Andy achieved one impossible thing after another in a nearly hopeless environment. So, what allowed Andy to operate this way? And what does it actually take to reclaim our own agency? Arrogance is the easiest thing to despise. We hear endless talk about its toxicity. But every coin has two sides, and I want to talk about the other side of arrogance. Andy was wrongfully convicted largely because of his arrogance. He was too calm, and the judge hated his stoic expression. He only stated his facts, refused to get emotional, and never pleaded. He simply didn't act like an innocent man. Yet, that same arrogance kept him alive in Shawshank. From start to finish, he never saw himself as a criminal. He was not fighting any individual guard or the system. He didn't hate the judge who sentenced him. He just saw it as bad luck. Deep down, he knew another judge would have ruled the same way because the circumstantial evidence was damning. In his mind, there was a universal standard of right and wrong, rooted in pure rationality, not tied to any specific person. Andy's arrogance meant he only recognized his own internal evaluation system. He rejected however the outside world judged or treated him. Most people think agency is something you acquire from the outside, but it actually starts with defense, because external standards distort us so easily. Growing up, our parents wanted us to be well-behaved, so we assumed being well-behaved meant being good, and breaking rules meant being bad. As adults, that direct rule disappears, but we have fully internalized the habit of measuring ourselves with other people's rulers. The human brain is lazy. Thinking critically about everything costs too much energy, so it takes the path of least resistance, just copy-pasting other people's standards. But once you rely on other people's standards, your agency begins to die. This is where arrogance becomes your greatest defense. It forces you to stand by yourself and judge reality through your own eyes. Even when the entire world insists you are wrong, as long as you genuinely believe you are right, your core remains safe. You won't break. On Andy's first night at Shawshank, a new inmate broke down crying and was beaten to death by the chief guard. The next morning, when everyone learned the man had died, Andy asked for his name. The other prisoners didn't understand why he cared. It seemed completely useless. In practical terms, knowing the man's name couldn't undo his death, but it turned him back into a human being instead of the fat boy everyone mocked. His name couldn't change his fate, but it completely changed the subject of the narrative. To the other inmates, a guard simply killed a body, but with a name, a living human being was murdered. From day one, Andy refused to accept the prison's dehumanizing narrative. The subtle difference lies in how you interpret the world. Who is the subject? Is the world acting on me, or am I taking action? Can I still change something, or must I just take the hit? At first, the environment was brutal to Andy. He was refined, and certainly not built for brawls or praising games. In that ecosystem, he had no physical leverage. A gang called the Sister targeted him, and for 2 years, Andy fought back constantly. Sometimes he won, sometimes he lost, but he never stopped resisting. Most people erode in terrible environments because they fall into learned helplessness. When pain is continuous and inescapable, the brain concludes that struggle is futile, so it surrenders completely. Andy knew that reality is never a solid slab of concrete. It is more like stiff modeling clay. As long as you keep applying pressure, even if you only leave a tiny dent each time, you will eventually reshape the local reality right in front of you. Andy continuously mobilized whatever small leverage he had, doing taxes for the guards, winning cold beers for fellow inmates, laundering money for the warden, and spending years writing letters to build a library. Step by step, he carved out leverage and privileges inside Shawshank. This was his direct counterattack against the learned helplessness, reshaping the reality around him to work for him, even in absolute confinement. The Shawshank Redemption is an escape story. Andy tunneled through the wall in less than 20 years using a ridiculously small rock hammer. This means that very early on, before he even had a fully guaranteed escape plan, he had already started digging. Many people talk about long-termism, but most misunderstand it as passive endurance. Gritting your teeth, suffering quietly, and staring at a distant goal. But enduring implies an entitlement mindset, waiting to be rewarded by a reality that never signed a contract with you. When everything you do is tied strictly to an immediate payoff, you are using sandpaper to grind down your own agency every single day. The endless waiting only reinforces your feeling of powerlessness, and the final outcome is rarely good. True long-term practitioners are now the ones who endure suffering best. They simply don't spend their energy enduring. Take Andy's library project. Like digging the tunnel, it required years. He wrote letters to the state government for 6 straight years just to get $200 and a few user books and records. His reaction was, it only took 6 years. Once he saw progress, he doubled his output to 2 letters a week and eventually built a real library. We all need a sense of control, but some become long-term doers, while others turn into control freaks. What is the difference? Control freaks try to control things outside their power. When things fall apart, they resort to complaining just to self-soothe. Long-term practitioners, on the other hand, focus strictly on the immediate moments they can control. Writing a letter was within Andy's control. Swinging the hammer was within his control. Fighting back when attacked was within his control. He poured all his energy into what was actionable. As for what he could not control, he accepted it and moved on to the next actionable step. He maintained a clear boundary between himself and the external world. That radical ownership of your immediate actions under any circumstance is the purest form of agency. At the end of the film, Andy crosses through 500 yards of fall sewage pipe and opens his arms in the pouring rain. That moment is unforgettable. But what truly matters are all the unfilmed moments leading up to it. Andy's redemption was not a lottery ticket. It was the inevitable victory of a true long-term doer. If you spend your life waiting for a certainty, you will wait forever. The moment you simply take the next step and swing the hammer, the prison walls have already begun to crack.